no one wants to fly economy, but sometimes it's just a fact of life and we have to do it. So how can you survive that super long, super painful economy flight? We're going to talk about that today. My name is Sean and I'm here with my co-host.
Hi everyone, I'm Sherwin of the Credit Card BS podcast. Today's episode, Economy Flight Survival Guide. We have some tips and tricks for you. Beginning with the first one, which is bulkhead and extra legroom seats.
So yeah, I feel like picking a bulkhead or extra legroom seat is like really smart. And if you're on a long haul flight, right, like an international flight, it's something that can save you a lot of pain and just having that extra space to spread out. And oftentimes it won't be as expensive as you think. Maybe your round trip ticket's $1,000. Maybe it's like $100 extra per way to do it. And it can make a significant difference.
Yeah, I usually don't find paying for the seat upgrades that worth it when I'm doing domestic economy because they're very expensive and marginal quality. But I can see if you're already spending thousands of dollars on a long haul international economy flight or just a more substantial amount, it may make sense to pay for that upgrade and have a much better experience holistically.
Definitely.
The other tip I have is not to rely on plane entertainment. So I'd recommend bringing your own phone, tablet, download the thing beforehand because you don't want to rely on plane Wi-Fi. Podcasts are useful. Books, they can really help pass the time and, make the flight feel a lot shorter.
For sure. I think, yeah, when I have had good entertainment on a flight, it just feels like I actually don't hate it that much. It's much better. And even on plane, even when you have IFE on the plane, it's sometimes they suck. They have a bad selection. So having your own stuff is really nice. I think also, again, on the note of seat selection, I'm team aisle, right? Pick an aisle seat. Because on a long haul flight, especially if it's a daytime flight, everyone wants the window shades closed anyways. Right? Most people there's an expectation to close it. And so it's okay, if you're on a night flight, why do you need the window? Right? Even if it's open, it's dark. On a day flight, no one wants the window open. So aisle is what I like to do. And then you can, you get out of your seat without climbing over people. It's just an easier experience.
Yeah, I also prefer aisle seat over window. If I have that opportunity to choose, I'd rather not have to climb over two people to go to the bathroom. But that's just me personally. I can definitely see some people prefer window seat. My next tip is to understand policies such as checked bags and checked bag fees. You don't want to be blindsided at the airport because you didn't study this beforehand. Know which airlines charge money for checked bags. Know how you might be able to get those waived if you have certain credit cards or status. And know which airlines offer free checkbacks. I really like that Southwest, for example, offers 2 free checked bags. So sometimes, even though their flight might be slightly expensive, if I know that I will require checked bags, it may actually be cheaper overall for me to fly them as opposed to another airline, which requires me to pay for checked bags, assuming I don't have status with them.
Definitely. I think that's having status on an airline is just very useful if you're flying economy. If you're flying a premium cabin, kind of pointless because all the benefits of status you get with the premium cabin ticket. So in economy, it makes a lot more sense. I think another tip, and this is kind of niche, but this can happen. If you're traveling with a laptop and you have the laptop in the tray table, be careful how you place it. Because if the screen goes below the notch of where the tray table kind of gets stored when you flip it up, and the person in front of you reclines, that can crack your laptop screen and you're just out of luck. And so, yeah, I feel like that's something you should be careful about. And then on the note of reclining real quick, recline your seat. Don't be mean about it. Don't do it really fast and ruin the person's meal behind you or their laptop or whatever. But just do it slowly, do it nice. And if someone asks you to not recline, if they're being nice about it, then maybe depending on the circumstances, don't recline. But if they're being mean about it, go ahead and recline, right? You don't get anything if you're not nice. So I'm on team pro recline.
Yeah, I think especially if you're on a very long flight, it makes no sense to be demanded not to recline. That's literally an essential aspect of the seat that you paid for. If you recline, the person behind you also has the right to recline and therefore restore some of their space. So it doesn't make sense when people are like, you shouldn't recline because it's, you know, rude. You know, if that were the case, they wouldn't offer you that option on the seat in the first place. Next tip I have is if you're flying Southwest, do make sure you check in as soon as that check-in window opens 24 hours before the departure of your first flight segment. It is especially important that you do so on the dot, not just sometime within that 24-hour window, but literally on the dot of that 24-hour time frame, because the time at which you check in dictates your boarding order, which in turn dictates which seat you get to choose. Because remember, Southwest doesn't do seat selection. It's sort of first come, first serve based on the order you get on the plane. And the order you got on the plane is based on when you check in. And everyone is doing it at that time. So don't be that person that forgets until a number of hours after check-in time. You know, I've been guilty of this myself. And, you know, you get the worst C boarding group with a large number. And then you basically are stuck in the back of the plane in the middle seat, which it can be quite unpleasant. So do yourself a favor, set alarms, set reminders, make sure you perform that online check-in on the dot.
And also remember to line up with your boarding group. If you have A1, best boarding position, but you show up when boarding group C is boarding, guess what? You get nothing now. You're in boarding group C. So it's like a two-part thing, right? You have to line up on time.
Yes. Another tip we have is to ask about cash upgrades and mileage upgrades. Now, this doesn't really work as well on, you know, domestic flights or flights where they have upgrade priority lists based on status. But Sean, when can it make sense?
So it can make sense on like long-haul international flights where they don't upgrade people with status. And so there can be times where like the business or premium economy cabin are like basically empty. And so asking about a cash or mileage upgrade at check-in could be very interesting, because if the plane is fairly empty, they may offer some competitive rates. Now, it's not going to be like, oh, $10 or something, but maybe a couple $100 for, you know, a fairly long flight in business class. And for a lot of people, that would be worth it. So it's definitely worth inquiring about, because you don't lose anything by asking, and there could be some pretty competitive rates, and a lot of people just don't ask.
Yes, and my next tip is to find good airport lounges beforehand and do some research and kind of plan it in. If you're flying business class, they usually have a nice business class lounge that you can use and you have access to because you're flying business. But if you're flying economy, generally it does not come with lounge access. So this is where some kind of lounge membership may be useful. Now, you actually don't have to pay a lot of money for a lot of these. Many credit cards, for example, come with Priority Pass, which is a lounge network throughout the world that you get access to just by holding that travel credit card. So it's something very worthwhile, especially if you're flying economy. American Express, City, and Capital, or not City, sorry, American Express, Capital One, and Chase have their own, you know, lounges that you can have access to if you get one of their premium cards. Also very much worth looking into. And then finally, some particular airlines will give you their club lounge access if you're flying them and hold your top tier credit card. So you can get a lot of lounge access merely by holding credit cards, which is something we very much recommend over like purchasing a lounge membership, for example, which is going to cost you way more money and is unnecessary.
Definitely. I think, yeah, like lounge memberships, total scam if you're actually buying it like most of the time. Getting it through a credit card, way better. Another tip, and this is kind of like one everyone recommends, but it's like, I don't know. You have to get the right one if you're going to do this, is bring a good headrest, because like, you know, these seats are basically like upright, right? The whole time you're on the plane. So having a good headrest can make it a lot more comfortable. There are some that are like, basically like they're these giant inflatable ones that go on the tray table and you can like, there's a hole for your head. Really embarrassing to use in the plane, but I heard they're very comfortable. I bought one and never used it. So I, you know, recommend looking into a few, maybe try a few out if you're able to, because it could make a big difference if you're actually able to like comfortably sleep on the plane versus, you know, having to sit up the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I've used a number of these before and they have helped. There's like some that go around your neck, some that you put on your tray table. I don't think it's that embarrassing. Like, do what you need to do to make yourself comfortable. It's, you know, it's a cramped seat. It's a long flight. You know, you're not getting much fresh air. So I don't think anyone would really judge you if you did it. And even if they did, it doesn't matter. So that's something I personally recommend. Another tip is to bring your own snacks and food. This is especially true on domestic economy flights where it can be long and they don't really provide you with a meal. I mean, you can purchase your overpriced cheese and cracker board or buy that tiny can of Pringles for an extraordinary price. But it's just so much easier if you can just bring your own food. And Sean, I think one of your takes is that you should be careful about what type of food you bring, right?
Yeah, you should bring like something that's like a practical item, right? Chips, kind of a bad item to bring on a plane. They take up a lot of space. They kind of get your like fingers a little oily. They make a lot of noise, so you kind of feel awkward eating them. I think something like a sandwich is good. I like candy, something that's like fairly dense because it doesn't take up as much space in your bag. And it's a more like practical item. Now, if you want to bring a bag of chips, bring a bag of chips. I'm just saying if you don't know what to bring, there are items that are more or less like practical to each other. So I would try to bring some more like practical food items, something you legitimately enjoy and something that preserves well, when you're leaving it in a bag for several hours.
Yes, my next tip, which is related, is if you're on a long haul economy flight, usually international, consider selecting a specialty meal. Now, normally specialty meals are like the vegetarian or vegan meal, so that may not apply to most people. But I've had some luck, on long-term or long-haul economy flights to Asia where I had an option to pick a seafood meal, and those were actually much preferable to the standard meals they were saving. So definitely check that out on the online portal beforehand. Also, do note that one advantage of selecting a specialty meal is that you get served early, so the flight attendants usually bring those out first before they serve the rest of the passengers. So it can be good to not have to compete with other people all trying to eat at the same time.
Definitely, yeah. And I've always been served first when I've picked a specialty meal. And so it's something that can make it a lot, just eat faster. It's nice, not have to deal with all and also you get to have your meal selected versus maybe there's something on the menu I really wanted. And it's, now they're sold out. And now I'm sad.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the next tip?
Yeah,
Sean?
The next tip is, bring a good pair of headphones. Don't rely on that stuff they give you on the plane. Even in business and first, the headphones suck. Bring some noise canceling headphones like Bose QC35s, 45s, like that's what I use, or AirPod Pros. They're very good at noise canceling. It helps reduce the sound you hear from the engine. It's just a lot nicer. It's just easier. And bring a plain adapter with that, right? You can buy them on Amazon if it doesn't come with it. Because, they have it's not a single prong headphone jack on airplanes. Usually it's 2 or 3. So getting those is really nice because then you can actually use it on the plane as opposed to, having to stick with the airline headphones. And also they sell even Bluetooth adapters, which I haven't had luck using, but if you can get it working, you can use your AirPods in the plane. Very nice, very convenient, as opposed to having a wire and, just being uncomfortable the whole time.
Yeah, I've found that the airline earbuds or headphones usually make my ears hurt if I'm using them for too long. So having my own headphones is really nice. And yeah, definitely make sure you get that adapter if you want to use your own headphones with the in-flight entertainment, because they usually have a different headphone jack for some reason. My next tip is to understand the seat map of a particular plane. Sean, you kind of want to explain why this is important.
Yeah, so many people will post these social media videos I paid for a window seat and there was no window, it was just a wall, and it's because you don't understand the seat map. Now, airlines should do a better job of displaying this, but they don't. So use a site called aerolopa.com, AEROLOPA.com, and it displays every seat map for every major airline for every aircraft in the world. And you're able to see accurate, updated layouts of what it actually looks like inside the cabin. So you can see where the windows are, you can see where the galley is, where the lavatories are. It can give you a lot of information about what is a good seat to pick. So I highly recommend that. And also on that note is the fact that you should understand the layout of the economy flight you're in. Different aircrafts have different configurations, whether it be a 333, 343, or the very nice 242. And so if you're able to do that, you can make your experience better. For example, let's say you bring a player 2 and you're flying on an economy configuration that's 242, and you're sitting together in 2 economy seats with no stranger sitting next to you. You know who you're sitting next to. You don't have to climb over anyone else to get out. One of you gets a window, one of you gets an aisle, no one gets a middle. It makes the experience so much better.
Yes, I completely agree. Really, yeah, make sure you understand. And also, like, don't forget to pick a seat if you have the option to do so without being to pay more. Like, it boggles my mind how many people just like forget or are too lazy to pick a seat, and then they end up in like the back and the middle seat that nobody else has selected. So don't forget to do that. But there are some like saver fares where you can't pick seats, unfortunately. But assuming you're booking a fare that allows you to, do take advantage of it. It can materially change your flight experience.
Absolutely.
Our final tip, which is a bit contradictory, I guess, is don't fly economy class. Now, you might be like, wait a minute, premium cabins, business class, often super expensive. Most people can't afford it or justify it. It's astronomically more expensive for very little added value for a flight that's only 10 or 11 hours long. Why would I pay that much more money? And our answer is you don't necessarily have to pay more money to fly business class. Sean, explain.
So if you understand this game of points and miles, you can fly in very nice cabins for absurdly little money. In 2 days, I am taking Qantas first class from LAX to Sydney, costing 70,000 Alaska miles each. That is an absurdly good redemption. That ticket costs over $10,000 per person per way. And, I wouldn't be able to do that, of course, without understanding this game. But I'm able to because I understand this game. So my new motto, if it ain't business, I ain't going. And so this whole trip, I'm going to Asia, I'm going all around the world, business, business, business. And it's not as difficult as you think. It requires work and it requires effort and it requires earning these credit card points, but it's not impossible. And it's not something that you need absurd amounts of money to do. I'm doing this trip for a very, very low amount of money, and I would never be able to pay for cash business or first class ever. And so being able to do this game and understanding it allows me to travel in a very high degree of comfort and luxury with very, very little money.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, just look into credit cards because oftentimes I end up finding myself spending even less money on and getting to fly business class because I'm using points than the amount of money I would have to shell out even for an economy class ticket. And if it sounds too good to be true, it really isn't. These banks and airline programs have massive marketing budgets, which mean they give out very, at least in the US, very generous and lucrative and juicy welcome bonuses on these credit cards. And oftentimes, a single welcome bonus from a credit card can be sufficient to cover one or more full entire business class or first class long haul flights. And they are super worth it, in my opinion, as long as you have like the good financial habits and are disciplined with your spending on credit cards and only spending money that you otherwise would or need to spend anyway. So that is how both Sean and I, who are literally college students who have not made that much money at this point in our lives, to be able to have these very cool and amazing experiences, whether on flights or other aspects of travel, without having to spend much money. So, Sean, is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
That's everything for today, I think.
Great. So if you enjoyed our list of economy flight survival tips and hacks, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Also, if you don't want to be stuck in economy class again, consider opening one of the travel credit cards we talked about. Links in the description below. If you use one of those, it greatly helps support our channel. And finally, Sean, why don't you talk about our Discord?
So if you want to connect with an elite group of award travelers and credit card enthusiasts and learn how to play this game entirely for free, check out the Traveling Discord group at the link in the description. You'll learn a ton, I promise you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next week.